brought to you by oneaauto.com, your source for quality parts and the best service on the internet.
Hi, I'm Mike from 1A Auto. I hope this how-to video helps you out. And next time you need parts for your vehicle, think of oneaauto.com. Thanks.
In this video, we're going to show you how to replace an alternator. This is a Toyota Camry 1998, and the procedure is pretty much the same for Toyota Camrys between 1997 to 2001. Items you'll need is a new alternator for 1A.com, 18 to 14 millimeter sockets and wrenches, one ratchet, an extension, and a small pry bar.
Open the hood and secure the hood prop. Using a 10 millimeter wrench, loosen the negative terminal on your battery. Remove and isolate the terminal. Your alternator is located at the top front of the motor on the passenger side. Using a 14 millimeter socket and ratchet, loosen the bolt where the alternator mounts to the engine. This will allow the alternator to pivot when adjusting the adjuster screw. Using a 12 millimeter socket and ratchet, loosen this bolt into the alternator and then adjust your adjusting screw down to remove the belt. Turn the adjusting screw counterclockwise to loosen it. You may have to push down on the alternator a little to get it to move. Once you have enough slack, remove the serpentine belt from the pulleys. You may have to twist it sideways to clear between the pulleys and the body. Put your fingers underneath the cap on the alternator terminal. Pop the cap off. Using a 10 millimeter socket and ratchet, be sure the battery is disconnected. Remove the nut from the power terminal of the alternator. Remove the cable, place it off to the side. Push down on the top of the connector at the back of the alternator. Remove the connector. Using a small flat blade screwdriver, carefully pry out on the retainer for the alternator harness. Move it out of the way. Using a 12 millimeter socket, finish removing the bolt on the back of the adjuster on the alternator. With a 14 millimeter socket and ratchet, finish removing the bolt at the pivot point of the alternator. Work the alternator out of the pivot bracket, either by hand or with the help of a small pry bar. Here we have our old part, which we removed from our car, and our new part from oneaauto.com. As you can see, the alternators are identical in size. They have the same pulley. They're both an 80 amp output rating. We have the same connector on the back, as well as the same top post here for our battery cable. You will have to change over the old wire loom bracket retainer if you'd like. Your alternator is responsible for charging your battery, as well as being the power source of your vehicle when the engine is running. It doesn't come from your battery once the engine's been started. Some symptoms of a bad alternator include a noise from a bad bearing. If the alternator itself fails, you can overcharge or undercharge the vehicle while driving. You would notice a high or low gauge at that point. A low state of charge in your battery, as well as sulfated plates, or the vehicle shutting off while driving. So if your old alternator has failed, caused the vehicle's battery to become damaged, shut off while the engine was running, Or you have a bad bearing, and this brand new replacement alternator from 1A Auto is going to go in, direct fit, just like your original equipment, and fix you up right. Your new alternator may not come with the wire retention bracket on it. If that's the case, you can use an 8mm socket and ratchet to remove the nut holding the old one on. Take your old retainer, remove the nut from your new alternator in the same location. Install the retainer onto the stud, reinstall your nut. Now you're ready to install your new alternator in the vehicle. Reinstall the pivot portion of the alternator into the pivot bracket here. Start your 14mm bolt. Start the bolt in by hand. Leave it loose just so you won't lose the alignment and it's easier to line up the other side. Line up the block here on the adjusting screw. Send your 12mm bolt through. Start it into the back of your alternator. Now you can bring the rear 14mm bolt back a little tighter. Make sure you don't tighten it all the way because we still have to install the serpentine belt and adjust it properly. Reinstall the wire harness retainer onto the bracket we switched over from the old alternator. Reconnect the plug at the back with the clip facing up. Install the terminal wire with the tabs facing down. Reinstall the 10mm nut. Tighten it down with a socket and ratchet. Reinstall the cover. The serpentine belt will be installed around the crank pulley, over top of the alternator pulley, and under the AC compressor. Be sure that the belt is seated properly onto the grooves of each pulley. Using a 12mm socket and ratchet, turn the tensioning bolt clockwise to add tension to the belt. Lock down the adjusting block with the same 12mm. Using a 14mm socket and ratchet, clamp down the pivot point bolt. Reinstall the negative battery terminal. Tighten it down with your 10mm wrench. Start the vehicle and check that the belt does not squeal or slip.
Thanks for tuning in. We hope this video helped you out. Next time you need parts for your car, please visit 1aauto.com. Also check out our other helpful how-to as well as diagnosis videos.